I want to get to the real hurts of this review, and that's going to be me talking about each of the characters. And I'm going to start with the main characters in that, and I'm going to start off with Rey, which is the main female character in this movie. And first we see her, she is actually a scavenger on the desert planet Jakku, where she is, we see her in a crashed Imperial Star Destroyer picking up all these spare parts and that, and we find out that she ends up trading these parts in for portions in that, which, when we see later, we see that the food portions in that, and that's how she's able to make a living in that trading in parts in that. But it definitely has a feel where you can definitely sense that there's something special about her, even though she doesn't know it yet. But and this goes along with one of the things. I think this is one of the reasons why people say it's a New Hope clone, is because there are similarities between Rey when we first see her and when we see Luke Skywalker in A New Hope, when he was just a moisture farmer and that. But having said that, Rey and Luke are just two completely different characters altogether. Whereas Luke was very reluctant of being outside. He wanted to be with his friends and that. He wanted to go to the academy and that. He really didn't have any aspirations of tackling the Empire and that. You can definitely tell in this movie right off the bat that Rey is a tough character, especially when she goes to trade in the spare Imperial Star Destroyer parts and that, what she was able to find in there. And you definitely tell she isn't really putting up with much of anything in that. With some of the other characters that we see in that, and another thing I should say is that, which this, I know this is going to be a bad segue in that, but another one of the main characters in the movie is Finn, which I talked about a little bit earlier in this review. He ends up being a stormtrooper. As a matter of fact, his serial number is FN2187, and he ends up getting the name Finn from Poe Dameron, which Finn helps him escape because he ends up getting captured by Kylo Ren, which is the main bad guy. But I'll talk about more about that soon enough. But we get to see where Finn wants nothing to do with the First Order and that, and he's trying to make his own path. And we get to see him on Jakku and that, and we get to see him and Rey meet. And this is definitely one of those scenarios which we get to see two of the most unlikely pairings in that, and we get to see them work together in essence in that. And we got to see this on the trailer where they were going to be the two main characters in this movie. So and now I'm going to talk about Poe Dameron, which is the Resistance. I almost said Rebel, which the Resistance is analogous to what the Rebel Alliance was in the original trilogy. But we get to see him in the opening credits in that. He is the one that's responsible for he is actually the master of BB-8, which is the name of the droid with the soccer ball body that we saw in the trailers and that. And here, what ends up happening is that he has BB-8 because BB-8 has a piece of a map which leads to the whereabouts of Luke Skywalker. And while he is trying to take care of BB-8 and getting out of there before the First Order destroys his village, BB-8 manages to escape, but Poe Dameron ends up getting captured by Kylo Ren, and he ends up getting tortured and that. But like I said a few minutes ago, he ends up getting rescued by Finn, and he ends up stealing a TIE fighter, which ends up crash landing on Jakku. Which Finn thinks that he died at first because he didn't see him, and the TIE fighter got sucked down into the sand and that. But we get to see later on that Poe did survive, and he happens to be on the planet Takodana alongside General Leia Organa in the heart of the Resistance and that, and we get to see him leading the charge of the X-Wing pilots there. So you can say he's kind of like a mixture of Luke Skywalker and Wedge Antilles in this movie and that. And I really like his character, and I also really like the friendship that he and Finn have in the movie. You can definitely tell where there's a mutual respect between the two. And I can't wait to see how this friendship further develops in the later movies and that. So, and as far as BB-8, which I also mentioned, he ends up finding Rey and Finn in the desert and that, and here when Ray ends up finding out, Ray and Finn both find out that BB-8 is carrying a part of the map that leads to the whereabouts of Luke Skywalker, which, especially Ray thinks that it's all just a myth about Luke Skywalker, which I should allude to Han Solo here pretty soon, but what ends up happening is that the First Order ends up finding out the whereabouts of BB-8. They end up finding out that he's on planet Jakku because Kylo Ren ends up getting the information from Poe Dameron using the Force. And in order to escape the planet, Finn and Rey end up finding the Millennium Falcon, which of course used to belong to Han Solo, which actually still does belong to Han Solo, but somehow got in the hands of the traitor that Rey deals with on Jakku and that, and they end up escaping in that, and here they end up getting trapped in a ship, which I think is First Order, but this is where we get to see Han Solo and Chewbacca for the first time, and this is definitely one of those moments as a Star Wars fan. I just couldn't help but smile and get a little bit teary-eyed just seeing these characters again after over a 30-year hiatus between that and this movie and Return of the Jedi and that. And you can definitely tell where, especially Harrison Ford, he did not lose his edge on this character at all. He portrayed Han Solo the same way that he did in the original trilogy, and I absolutely love that. So, but yeah, we get to see Han and Chewie form kind of like a fellowship with Finn and Rey, which I have to say that not only was Han Solo impressed with Rey and her knowledge about the Millennium Falcon and that, but was really impressed as Rey as the character because it goes to show that not only is she a scavenger and that, and she's a survivor and that, but she's pretty darn smart too. Because not only is she good with her staff that she has, but she's able to pilot older ships like that, so. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool in that, and and go along with me talking about Han Solo and that, of course we get to, I mentioned General Leia being the head of the Resistance and that, which I wonder how she got, well, obviously she was a big part of the Rebel Alliance during the original trilogy, but I wonder if she's still technically a princess or if she gave that up in order to be a general, and more interesting for me is I wonder how well she's able to use the Force in that, and if whether or not she has any lightsaber skills in that. But yeah, we don't really get to see General Leia all that much in this movie. But when she is shown in this movie, I thought she did a really good job, and I thought Carrie Fisher looked really good in this role. And I really don't understand the criticism that she's got based on her looks in that. I still think she looks good enough to rip the arms off a Gundark, that's for sure. So, but I should really talk about the big twist in this movie concerning Han and Leia, and that is we do end up finding out that they have a son together named Ben Solo. But the big twist is that we find out that Ben Solo is actually Kylo Ren, which is the main bad guy in this movie. And we get to see that how can I put this? He's pretty much a fanboy of Darth Vader. He's trying to emulate him. He's wearing all black. He's got the red lightsaber. He even has the mask in that, which kind of distorts his voice to make it himself almost cybernetic in that. But and this is, and I hate to say this, but this is definitely one of the things that I disagree with most of the fans on because I know they complain about how whiny he is and how underdeveloped he is as a character and that, but as far as the whiny bit, he really isn't all that much more whiny than what Anakin was during Episode 2, and I do have to say that even though I enjoyed Episode 2 very much, I have to say that Hayden Christensen was definitely the worst part of that movie. I mean, I'm not even going to deny that. He definitely did come across as whiny, but to say that Kylo Ren is somehow comparable to that, even worse than that, I think is totally wrong in my opinion, although people are entitled to that. And as far as him being underdeveloped, I mean, I kind of have to take offense to that because you look back at A New Hope and that, Darth Vader really wasn't all that developed. I mean, only thing we really knew about Darth Vader was that he was a bad guy who liked to choke people and take orders from Grand Moff Tarkin. We really didn't get to see a whole lot of character development in Darth Vader until Empire Strikes Back when we find out that he's Luke's father. So, and the same with Kylo Ren. We know that he's a bad guy. We know that he likes to take temper tantrums with his lightsaber, which would be the equivalent of Darth Vader using his force choke and that, and he seems to go alongside General Hux in this movie, which I should say, Domhnall Gleeson, which was the actor of him, did a fantastic job, especially the one scene where they used to kill a base, which, like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about that soon enough, but I thought he did a fantastic job, and there's one scene in that movie where he delivers a speech, which I thought was very powerful. And we also get to see Kylo Ren, going back to him, talking with Supreme Leader Snoke, which is going to be the big bad in this sequel trilogy. He's the one that's responsible for Ben Solo turning into Kylo Ren and that, and turning him to the dark side of the Force and that. So they're really, I mean, this is the first movie out of the sequel trilogy and that, and for people to complain like this, saying that he's underdeveloped and whiny and that, give this character a break, There's 2 more movies coming out. You mean to tell me that J.J. Abrams and Lawrence Kasdan isn't gonna have any plan whatsoever to further develop the character? I mean, come on. I mean, I hate to I hate to whine about this, but geez, I mean, it's a, I just don't know what people want sometimes. Not so much what people want, but some people are just so impatient in that. So, anyways, I want to get back to, and I want to talk about the big thing, obviously, since the name of this movie is The Force Awakens, and we definitely get to see, like, 2 big things here as far as this movie is concerned. The first happens where we get to see, or I should say, before I continue on, I was mistaken about Takodana. That's not where the Resistance is held. That's actually a planet called Dakar. D''Qar. So I am wrong about that. And Takodana is actually goes along with the first point I want to make here, and that is, well, we get to see Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, which is held at a place where a character named Maz Kanata is, which she is a little old character in that. She's at least 1,000 years old from what she said in the movie and that, but she has underneath her place where she has Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, and we get to see Rey. She hears voices while her, Han, and Finn are there, and we get to see her following the voices in that, which leads to her lightsaber. And as soon as she opens up the box that it's in, and she touches the lightsaber, you get to see her with all these visions. And the very first one is where Luke Skywalker fought Darth Vader at Bespin and that, and we get to see other visions in that relating to either Luke or Anakin Skywalker, and that is definitely a thing that I think this movie is trying to strike home, is that I think they're more or less hinting that Rey is somehow a Skywalker, and that based on this, and this goes along towards the end of the movie where she confronts Kylo Ren and that, but another thing I should bring up in regards to the Force is that the big scene between Han Solo and Kylo Ren, because here Finn, whenever they're at the car and that at the Resistance base, everyone is under the impression that Finn knows the weak points of Starkiller Base just because Finn said that he did. But here, come to find out that that Finn was actually a maintenance person at the Starkiller Base and really wasn't quite sure where the weak spot was at all. In which, of course, Han scolded him about it, saying that the Resistance is counting on his intelligence and that. And I have to say that I agree with Han there, because that definitely was not the right thing for Finn to do. But But while they're at Starkiller Base, we get to see Han and Kylo Ren together, and here Leia, right before he left, told Han that she still sensed a little bit of lightness yet in Kylo Ren and that. And so, in this scene, we get to see where Han is saddened by seeing his son like that, and he asks him to take his mask off, and of course Kylo Ren says, well, what do you hope to see? And then that's where Han goes, the face of my son, so Kylo Ren ends up taking his mask off and that, and revealing himself to Han Solo and that, and we get to see them having a conversation, and Kylo Ren starts tearing up in that, and it looks like because he says that he's all torn up, torn apart in that, and he says he knows what he needs to do, but it doesn't know if he has the strength to do it. And Han and all most of us, we were getting our hopes up that maybe he could be turned to the light side in that, but that's whenever he turned his lightsaber on Han and ends up stabbing him through the chest with it. And needless to say, Han didn't survive that. So, but yeah, I thought that was a pretty sad scene in that, and it goes to show what kind of an evil character Kylo Ren was. So.